A pregnant mother's routine shopping trip turned into a nightmare when a corrupt cop crossed the line, until 15 Hells Angels bikers witnessed everything and refused to stand by. What happens when society's most feared outsiders become the unexpected guardians of justice against those sworn to protect and serve? The summer heat pressed down on the small town of Ridgeview like a heavy blanket. Waves of warmth rose from the cracked pavement of the Gas and Go parking lot, where the thermometer on the store's outer wall blinked 94 degrees in angry red numbers. Inside her old blue Honda, Maria Delgado closed her eyes for a moment, gathering strength before heading into the store. At 7 months pregnant, even simple errands had become a challenge. Her cotton dress clung to her back, and her swollen ankles ached inside her only pair of comfortable shoes. Just milk, vitamins, and maybe something cold to drink, she whispered to herself, counting the wrinkled $20 bill in her wallet, the last of this week's tight budget. The baby kicked inside her, as if responding to her voice. Maria smiled and placed a gentle hand on her round belly. "Yes, little one. I know you're there, always reminding me what matters." The store's bell jingled as she pushed open the door, welcoming her with a blast of cool air that raised goosebumps on her arms. The cashier, Mrs. Patel, waved from behind the counter. Her kind face crinkled into a smile when she spotted Maria's pregnant belly. "How are you feeling today, dear?" Mrs. Patel asked, pausing from stacking packs of gum beside the register. "Tired, but okay," Maria answered, making her way toward the dairy section. The clean white floors squeaked under her steps. She carefully selected a half-gallon of milk, checking the price twice before placing it in her basket. Next came the prenatal vitamins, which ate up most of her $20. She couldn't help glancing longingly at the fresh fruit display, bright red apples and yellow bananas that were simply not in her budget this week. Outside the store windows, a police cruiser pulled into the parking lot, its white paint gleaming in the harsh sunlight. Officer James Mercer stepped out, adjusting his mirrored sunglasses with one hand, while the other rested casually on his belt, inches from his holster. He scanned the parking lot like a hunter looking for prey. Mrs. Patel's smile faded as she followed Maria's gaze to the officer. "That man," she muttered, shaking her head slightly. "Be careful around him. He's not like the other officers." Maria nodded, suddenly feeling a chill despite the heat. Stories about Officer Mercer circulated through town, stories about missing evidence, rough arrests, and tickets that could be forgotten for the right price. Most people kept their heads down when he was around. At the counter, Maria carefully counted out her money. The total came to $18.74, leaving her with just enough for a small ice water from the fountain machine. As Mrs. Patel bagged her items, she slipped in a banana with a wink. "For the baby," she said quietly. "My grandmother always said yellow fruits bring joy to unborn children." Maria's eyes welled up at the simple kindness. "Thank you," she whispered, her throat tight. It had been 3 months since Carlos's hours at the factory were cut, and every small generosity felt enormous. Outside, the heat hit her like a wall as she stepped from the air-conditioned store. Sweat immediately beaded on her forehead, and her heart pounded a little harder as she noticed Officer Mercer leaning against his cruiser, watching her. His face remained unreadable behind his sunglasses, but his posture changed as she walked toward her car, parked at the far end of the lot. Maria kept her eyes down, keys clutched tightly in her hand. The weight of her shopping bag pulled on her arm, and the baby shifted uncomfortably inside her. 6 more steps to her car. 5. 4. The keys slipped from her sweaty fingers and clattered to the hot pavement just as Officer Mercer pushed himself away from his cruiser and began walking toward her. Maria stared at her fallen keys, her pregnant body making it impossible to bend down easily. Each breath came quicker as Officer Mercer's footsteps grew louder on the hot asphalt. His shadow fell across her before she could think of what to do. "Need some help there?" His voice sounded friendly, but something in it made Maria's skin prickle with fear. He picked up her keys, but didn't hand them over. Instead, he dangled them just out of reach, the metal catching the sunlight. "Thank you, officer. May I have my keys, please?" Maria asked, trying to keep her voice steady. She could smell his cologne, sharp and too strong in the heat. Officer Mercer twirled the keys around his finger. "In a rush? Where are you from, anyway? You don't sound like you're from around here." "I've lived in Ridgeview for 5 years, sir," Maria answered, her hand instinctively moving to protect her belly. "My husband and I have an apartment on Maple Street." "ID," he demanded suddenly, his tone changing. "Driver's license. Now." Maria blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, but why? I'm just walking to my car after shopping." Officer Mercer stepped closer, his chest puffed out. The badge on his uniform caught the light, flashing into Maria's eyes. "Because I said so. That's reason enough. License. Now." With trembling hands, Maria opened her purse. A photo slipped out, her and Carlos on their wedding day, smiling and full of hope for the future. It fluttered to the ground between them. Before she could reach for it, Officer Mercer's boot stepped on the edge, smudging her husband's face with dirt. "I'm just buying milk and vitamins," Maria said, holding up her shopping bag. "Here's my receipt. I haven't done anything wrong." "You questioning my authority?" Officer Mercer's face darkened. His hand moved to rest on his belt, near his holster. "I decide who gets questioned in my jurisdiction." From the store window, Mrs. Patel watched with worried eyes. She picked up the phone behind the counter, her fingers hovering over the buttons. Maria felt the baby kick hard, as if sensing her fear. Her throat tightened. "Please, I need to get home. My husband will worry." "Your husband?" Officer Mercer repeated with a smirk. "And where's he from? Does he have proper papers? Maybe I should pay him a visit too." The blood drained from Maria's face. Carlos's work permit was being renewed, a process delayed by red tape and overworked government offices. They lived in fear of questions like these. "Please," Maria whispered, "I just want to go home." When she reached for her keys, Officer Mercer grabbed her wrist. His fingers dug into her skin hard enough to leave marks. "When I say we're done, we're done. Not before." Maria tried to pull away. "You're hurting me." The slap came without warning. Officer Mercer's open palm striking her face with enough force to snap her head back. The sound cracked through the parking lot like a gunshot. Pain blazed across Maria's cheek as she stumbled backward, one hand flying to her face, the other wrapping protectively around her belly. "Don't you ever tell me what I'm doing," Officer Mercer growled. In that moment, the rumble of motorcycles filled the air. The ground seemed to vibrate as 15 bikes pulled into the gas station across the street. Leather-clad figures sat atop gleaming machines, their faces hidden behind helmets and sunglasses. Patches on their vests showed the unmistakable colors of the Hells Angels. As one, they cut their engines. The sudden silence felt heavier than the noise. 15 pairs of eyes turned toward the scene in the convenience store parking lot, toward the pregnant woman with a red handprint blooming on her cheek, and the police officer with his hand still raised. Through tears of pain and shock, Maria saw them watching. She saw Mrs. Patel hurrying out of the store. And for the first time, she saw something new flash across Officer Mercer's face. uncertainty. The parking lot fell silent except for Maria's ragged breathing and the soft jingle of chains as the bikers dismounted from their motorcycles. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with a drop of blood where her lip had split. Her cheek throbbed with pain. Mrs. Patel rushed to her side, putting a gentle arm around her shoulders. "Maria, are you all right?" Mrs. Patel asked, her voice shaking with anger as she glared at Officer Mercer. Across the street, the largest of the bikers removed his helmet. His face was weathered like old leather, with deep lines etched around his eyes and mouth. A long gray beard covered his chin. The name Bones was stitched in faded thread on his vest. He said something to the others, and they nodded in response. Officer Mercer's hand moved to his radio. "Dispatch, I need backup at the Gas and Go on Main Street," he said, trying to sound calm, but his voice cracked. He kept his eyes on the bikers as they crossed the street in a tight group, boots crunching on the hot asphalt. "You okay, ma'am?" Bones asked when he reached Maria. His voice was surprisingly soft and respectful. Up close, Maria could see tattoos covering his arms. An eagle, some words she couldn't read, and what looked like the face of a young girl. Before Maria could answer, Officer Mercer stepped between them. "This is police business. Back away now." Bones didn't move. Funny, from where I was standing, it looked like assault on a pregnant woman. He turned his head slightly. "Duke, you still recording?" A younger biker held up his phone. "Got it all, Bones." Started filming the second he put hands on her. Other phones had appeared as well. Mrs. Patel's, 2 bikers, and a teenager's who had stopped his bike at the edge of the parking lot. All pointed at Officer Mercer, capturing every move. People began to gather, a couple from the laundromat next door, the gas station attendant, drivers who pulled over when they saw the crowd. Within minutes, at least 20 people stood witness. "That pregnant lady need medical attention, officer?" Bones asked, still calm. Officer Mercer's face twisted with rage. "You're interfering with police business. All of you need to disperse now, or face arrest." "For what? Standing on public property? Filming police activity? Helping an injured woman?" Another biker asked. This one had medic tattooed on his knuckles. He turned to Maria. "I was a paramedic before I joined the club. May I check your blood pressure, ma'am? Stress isn't good for the baby." Maria nodded weakly. Mrs. Patel helped her to a bench outside the store while the biker with medical training knelt beside her, speaking in soothing tones. Officer Mercer's hand moved to his holster, but stopped when he saw how many phones tracked the movement. Sweat beaded on his forehead that had nothing to do with the heat. "You're making a big mistake," he hissed at Bones. "You have no idea who you're messing with." Bones just smiled slightly. "Actually, I do. Officer James Mercer, badge number 4873, known around town for your special brand of justice. We've been hearing stories for months." A siren wailed in the distance. Backup coming. But something else was happening too. A woman stepped forward from the growing crowd. "He took $200 from my son last month," she said loudly. "Said the ticket would disappear if he paid cash on the spot." "Pulled me over 3 times in 1 week," a man added. "Nothing wrong with my car or driving." "Threatened to call immigration on my brother when he reported his bike stolen," another voice called out. One by one, people began to speak up, years of fear and silence breaking open like a dam. Each story spilled into the next, creating a flood of accusations. Officer Mercer's face drained of color as he realized what was happening. Maria watched it all through tear-blurred eyes, one hand holding the ice pack the biker medic had given her, the other resting on her belly where her baby kicked restlessly. 2 police cars pulled into the parking lot. The officers stepped out, looking confused at the scene. A crowd of angry citizens, a group of Hell's Angels standing protectively near a pregnant woman, and Officer Mercer standing alone, surrounded by phones recording his every move. "What's going on here?" asked Sergeant Wilson, the highest-ranking officer. "Your officer struck a pregnant woman," Bones said simply. "We all saw it, and we have proof." 3 months later, Maria walked slowly down the courthouse hallway, cradling her 2-week-old daughter against her chest. The baby's warmth spread through Maria's heart like sunshine. Little Esperanza, Hope, had arrived healthy and strong despite everything that happened. She had her father's dark eyes and Maria's stubborn chin. Carlos walked beside them, his hand gentle on Maria's back. He looked different today in his pressed shirt and tie instead of his factory work clothes. His eyes never left his wife and daughter, as if he couldn't quite believe they were real. "Are you nervous?" he asked softly. Maria nodded. The memory of that hot day still made her chest tighten, but the red mark on her cheek had faded long ago, thanks to time and the special cream Mrs. Patel had given her. "A little, but we need to be here, for everyone." The hallway opened into a crowded waiting area where familiar faces turned toward them. Mrs. Patel rushed over first, cooing at the baby and hugging Maria carefully. Behind her stood many others from town. The woman whose son had been forced to pay a bribe, the man who had been pulled over repeatedly, and at least a dozen more who had shared their stories about Officer Mercer after that day. And there, standing respectfully against the back wall, were 15 men in plain clothes. No leather vests today, no patches or club colors. But Maria would know them anywhere. Bones nodded at her from across the room. The door to the hearing room opened, and a court officer appeared. "We're ready to begin." Inside, Maria sat between Carlos and their lawyer, Ms. Rivera, who had taken their case for free after seeing the videos of what happened. Across the room, Officer Mercer sat alone, his uniform replaced by a dark suit that seemed too big for him now. He kept his eyes on the table. The hearing was short. The internal affairs investigation had been thorough, with too many witnesses and too much evidence to ignore. The police chief read the findings in a clear voice that filled the quiet room. "Officer James Mercer, you have been found guilty of excessive force, abuse of power, and multiple violations of department policy. Your employment with the Ridgeview Police Department is terminated, effective immediately. You will surrender your badge and weapon today. Civil rights charges are pending with the district attorney's office." The room stayed quiet as Officer Mercer stood, placed his badge on the table with shaking hands, and walked out without looking at anyone. Only when the door closed behind him did the whispers start. Later, as they left the courthouse, stepping into the soft spring sunshine, Maria paused on the steps. Esperanza made little cooing sounds in her sleep, her tiny fist wrapped around Maria's finger. "Mrs. Delgado," a deep voice called. Bones approached slowly, respectful of the sleeping baby. The other bikers waited at the bottom of the steps. In his weathered hands, Bones held a small stuffed bear with a pink ribbon around its neck. "We wanted to give this to your little one," he said, offering the bear. "And to check how you're doing." Maria smiled, taking the gift. "We're okay now. Thank you. For stopping that day. For watching. For speaking up." Bones nodded. "Community takes care of its own." He looked down at the baby, his tough face softening. "What's her name?" "Esperanza," Maria answered. "It means hope in Spanish." A smile cracked through Bones's beard. Perfect name. He touched the bear's paw gently. Tell her, when she's older, that there are more good people than bad ones in the world. Sometimes they just wear unexpected faces. As Bones walked away to join his brothers, Maria looked around at the gathered crowd. Mrs. Patel, neighbors, strangers who had become friends, bikers in plain clothes, even Sergeant Wilson, who had helped push the investigation forward. Different people from different parts of town who might never have spoken to each other before, all brought together because they refused to look away when someone needed help. Carlos put his arm around Maria's shoulders, and they walked down the courthouse steps together. The afternoon sun warmed their faces, catching the tiny gold cross hanging from Maria's necklace and making it shine. Somewhere down the street, a motorcycle engine started up. The sound no longer frightening, but somehow comforting. Maria kissed Esperanza's forehead and whispered, "Your world is going to be better than mine was. I promise." The baby opened her eyes for a moment, as if taking in the faces of all the people who had helped make that promise possible, before drifting back to sleep, safe in her mother's arms.